You didn't give me the sign.
Do it.
I was kind of boring myself.
Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show, and joined today by a guy. It's so nice to, I normally see him on the bandstand here in Tucson, or maybe perhaps in an airport along the way on my travels, but got a chance to have him in studio today for an interview. Steve Grams, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show. You know, I wanted to ask you, I mean, when did you first start playing with a trap drummer, and how long did it take you to get comfortable playing with one?
I don't think back when I started in 64, somewhere like that, there was no way to play without a drummer because it was rock and roll, and that's just the way it was. I don't think I played without a drummer until I started playing double bass for many years. What I grew up on, like Stax and Volt and Duke Records, that kind of stuff that we heard in Iowa, it was all heavy R&B and blues and bass and drums. I mean, that's what it was, man.
What did you, I mean, can you talk about some of the antiquated PA systems that you had to play through? Here's the bottom line is that, Al Jackson told, when I interviewed Steve Cropper a couple months ago, he's like, Jackson said, all you got to do is make it look like you're having fun because nobody can hear you in the back anyway. and so can you talk about how your ears grew on the bandstand during that heavy R&B and soul period?
Well, for the old musicians out there, the PA of choice was the Bogan Bananas, and they were these really lightweight, actually, design-wise, they had a curve on them like the big PAs do, in the big theaters. But it was like that, and it's really crude. Gosh, I don't remember if there was more than 2 or 3 or 4 channels. It was high impedance. Most of the venues back then were grounded, so and all this noise. So, I don't know about anybody else that was playing back then, but all I was worried about was what the other guys on stage were thinking and what they were doing, because I was chasing them around it's like herding cats.
No, I mean, did you feel like you were having a conversation on the bandstand, or was it more like holding on for dear life?
The former, definitely conversations.
Can you talk about that in the sense of, you didn't go to school for music. I
did not.
Music is codified now in academia. So I just wanted to know about how you learned to truly, even today with Krieger or any of the Bad News Blues band, but how did you learn to have a conversation on the bandstand? Was there a defining moment that you could point to early in your career when you realized that it was really about thinking as one?
I can't think of a specific instance when the light went on, but I've been really lucky, except for like my first couple of bands that went out when we were all kids, and none of those guys are still musicians. But once I started working with real players, and they were always older than me, it was a requirement that you play in the groove, you play with the other players. So I think that really, for me, kicked in really early. You mentioned music education. Back then, if you were going to go to school for music, you either had a major in a classical instrument or you were going to be a musical director for a choir or a high school. That wasn't for me. None of that was for me. And as an electric bass player there, I'm still waiting for the orchestras to start breaking out with electric basses. So for me, I just picked the needle up off records and, just learned bass parts and learned how to play along with inadvertently with the music. And then when I got on the bandstand, now, how come the drummer and I aren't together?
Right.
Well, in most cases, it was the drummer speeding up or slowing down. No, I'm kidding. Once you get that all figured out, then it happens. It's just what it is.
This band, the Old Boys, is that the
Only Boys?
The Only Boys. Now, when you that was your first band, but those were not the Graybeards you were talking about. These were the younger cats that no longer.
Well, the Only Boys. There was a music promoter in Sioux City, Iowa, where I grew up, and he promoted the whole Midwest. And very, very nice gentleman by the name of Eddie Skeets. And Eddie also had a big band. And he had, I never could quite figure out what the drummer's connection was to Eddie, if he was like a surrogate son or whatever. The drummer was maybe 3 or 4 years older. His name is or was David Chose. And the guitar player was in that age group too, like 21, 22, Daryl Shinkunis. But everybody else in the band were high school. We were all in the same high school. The other 5 of us, we all graduated the same day. But Mr. Skeets put tours together the summer of '66. The first 3 weeks after high school, we toured all over the upper Midwest. And I'm playing like community centers, the real big stages. We opened for Mitch Ryder for 3 weeks, and then we did 3 weeks with
Paul Revere.
No, Gary Lewis and the Playboys.
Was Keltner on those? I mean, who's playing?
No, Keltner wasn't, but Carl Rattle was playing.
Carl
bass.
Rattle. Oh my, yeah, Tulsa's.
What a sweet! I learned more from that guy. He had.
I love it. Break it down.
He had a what's the word I'm looking for? An endorsement with those stupid Beatle basses, the Hofner basses, right? So he had to play. He's playing a Hofner bass, and we'd been out about. We played Sioux City, Des Moines, Yankton, Sioux Falls, whatever. But the 4th day into the tour, I'm sitting there and I'm just practicing or whatever. And Carl comes up to me and he goes, "Would you mind if I played your Fender?" I said, "Sure.
Take it, man."
And then he and I said, "How come you don't play a Fender at the gigs?" And he says, "Well, it's an endorsement thing. I have to play the Hofner and blah, blah, blah." So during the course of those 3 weeks, he showed me like warm-up scales that he used. I never took my eyes off him when they played. And he was
so he was showing you on your Fender bass offstage scales and things like that.
Yeah, like warm-up stuff. He said, I said, "What's one thing I could do to, improve this?" And he said, "Well, if you do this and, and just practice that, do that a lot, you'll find that your index and middle get real strong, and this hand's going to get wide open, and you're going to be up and down the neck." And that's what I did.
Did you?
And then,
yeah, go ahead.
And then Paul Revere and the Raiders after that.
Do you feel like how? I mean, it may be self-explanatory, but is that a missing link in the music scene today, especially touring live music, being able to spend that much time on the road potentially or in one venue with major serious musicians and learning from them? I mean, that was a mentorship. That was school in 3 weeks. Oh, you got a PhD in 3 weeks on the bass.
Actually,
Does that exist today in a different form? How do you see that?
I don't think that was a very unusual. Well, not for the time.
Right.
For now, it would be very unusual. There's a couple sides to that. Number one, now bands are, not all of them, I know this is a generalization, bands are made up of people that can play the little songs they wrote. So many of the bands, like you take this individual out of this really successful indie band and you put them on a bandstand with Bad News Blues and you say, we're going to do Kansas City in G, they're going to stand there like this. Right? So, and those bands, wherever they play, there's some local group of tattoo piercing guys and gals that open for them.
Right.
So there's none of that at all.
Yeah. Wow. That's it. I mean, how'd we get to that point?
I don't know. I mean, I have done hundreds of concert openers. When I was in Minneapolis in the early 70s, we opened for all these great bands that were touring around then. I didn't have any interaction with those guys. They were in their own dressing room with the groupies and, whatever drug of choice they had. We went out there and played our set, and then struck our stuff, got out of the way. We didn't get to go in the blue room. So, I think it started then, probably.
A lot of the cats, Bobby Womack or Taj, and so many of these guys that I've interviewed, they often talk about the blues like, it's the story of your life. You're in some ways living that life authentically. And I maintain today, like I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but you have cats playing blues, but they're growing up in suburbia with a relatively decent existence. Can you talk about some adversity that you faced, or at least where you are rooted in the blues? Can you talk about a period of time in your musical life or anything that shaped your life and you were able to channel that in your music?
An anecdote, the summer that we were on the road, it was with Mitch Ryder. Mitch Ryder had a guitar player named James McCarty who went on, I think it was Cactus. And there was two bands from Sioux City. There was the opener, then it was us, and the opener had a guitar player, like a 15-year-old kid that I'd known. He was my best friend's youngest brother's friend, a kid by the name of Tommy Bolin. And Tommy played with...
Tommy Bolin? Oh my God, are you kidding me?
I think it was Patch of Blue was the name of the band. Anyway, Tommy was a badass in '66 when he was 15 years old.
Yeah, he played with Zephyr later on.
Yes, he did. Yeah, and they played with...
Wait, I'm sorry, is this Minnesota? Where is it?
Sioux City,
Sioux
Iowa.
City, Iowa.
Yeah, I mean, he played with the James Gang for a while, and then he did a record with Billy Cobham.
Spectrum.
And then sadly OD'd.
Yeah.
But anyway, the time that we were on that tour, every time I saw James McCarty, I saw Tommy Bolin. And Tommy told me later, when he was with Zephyr, actually, we ran into each other in Minneapolis in the early 70s. He told me, I learned more from James in that 3 weeks than I probably will ever learn in my life. At any rate, Tom's band was opening, and they were doing this song, and I looked at one of my buddies. I said, "What is that? It's horrible." And he said, "Oh, that's number one on the charts right now." My Baby Does the Hanky Panky, right?
Wow. So
I said, I'm never listening to the radio again. And if you know me, when I say shit like that, it's pretty much going to happen. So popular music went out the window with me. And so in Sioux City, there was two big radio stations that we got 50,000 watt blowtorches. KOMA out of Oklahoma City and KAAY out of Little Rock. And now people that started listening to KAAY in the late 60s and 70s, it became like this acid rock bullshit. But I remember race music. Sunday, I think it was called, before they called it R&B, so this must have been 60, 61, 62. Sunday, they had what they called the race show. That's the first time I heard all this Wilson Pickett and all this stuff, Rufus Thomas.
It was called the race show.
I think it was called
fantastic.
The race show.
Little Milton.
Oh, you name it. Well, but it was mostly all from Memphis. And then KOMA was really heavy into the Texas blues, Bobby Blue Bland, Little Junior Parker, all the Duke record stuff. So that's when I didn't even know that it was called blues. But I started learning those simple 3-chord, sometimes they threw in the 2, progressions. And I was a suburban kid, very comfortable life. Went to college to avoid the draft because my dad had the dough. I don't really have anything to complain about in almost 70 years of life. So what is it about the blues? For me, it's the feeling of the music, whether it's a shuffle, a Texas shuffle, a flat tire, a jump blues, a funky, a 6/8, whatever it is. All of those things are so ingrained into my heart that I guess it's blues, but I get the same feeling when I play country.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, because come on, Hank Williams, there wasn't anybody bluesier than Hank. It's the same thing, and applying also to a lot of rock. I mean, a lot of the rock was blues oriented, and I'm not talking about red, white, and blues or that kind of crap. I mean, Little Feat, the band, they guys played the blues and told stories.
And so the reality is the hanky-panky, the fluff, you were like, I'm done with the radio. So it's more authentic. When you just connected with the authenticity of that music that you were hearing.
Oh, yeah.
And then ultimately, I mean, anybody that's seen you play live, I mean, you pour your heart and soul out on the bandstand, but how...
But yet I don't even move.
Well, that's great. I mean, we don't want people dancing around all the time on the stage, but how do you feel or even talking to younger cats watching this, there are people tuning in all over the world, how do you develop your own individual sound? I mean, you can borrow from all those amazing bass players on those tunes, the Bobby Blue Bland, all those amazing bass line. You can borrow, beg, steal, everybody does that, but then you ultimately have to find your own voice. What, if you don't want to go through how you found your own sound, what would be, you do have your own sound, but how would you talk to peeps out there about how to cultivate their own individual sound? Because I hear a lot of homogenization of music today, especially in the blues.
So we're all over the world?
Well, we're worldwide, baby.
Oh, man.
My tentacles are, and you're doing great. People are having a ball.
Would it be okay if I get my water over there? I'm losing my throat.
Dude, get your water. Joined here by a legendary bass player based in Tucson, grew up in the Midwest and toured prolifically there, and really a humble cat. Yeah, I don't want you going dry here. So yeah,
say hi to all my friends in Holland.
Absolutely. So individual sound. I want you to just riff on that. How do you break away from borrowing and begging and stealing, and then breaking out and saying, I'm putting my own voice in here?
Well, that's that. I think in my case, pretty accidental. I've always gone to the easier approach. A buddy of mine in town here many years ago would always kind of tease me about playing so simply. And his line was that eventually Grams is going to get hired for gigs and he won't even have to show up. which I'm still waiting for, by the way.
Simple as it is not as simple as it looks, though.
Well,
you make it look easy. So
well, believe me, the way I play it is easy. But during the part of my life when I started playing double bass, and I was about 25 years ago, I played that up until about a year ago. Wanting to be more authentic, because I was doing mostly just jump blues and more. When I toured with a guy named Teddy Morgan, it wasn't country, it wasn't blues, but it was rock. And I listened to a lot of different, like late 40s, early 50s blues and jump, even a little bit of jazz in there, and
like Slam
rock.
Stewart kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, all those guys, Red Collender, and it goes on and on. Anyway, I learned that the traditional blues bass players, they let me get my bass.
Yeah, please. All those cats in Holland are asking you to demonstrate.
Well, I know 3 at least that want this bass. So, there's standard patterns, or whatever they are. What a lot of the regular, straight up, mostly electric bass players, they have the mindset that if there's 4 notes in a measure, that each note needs to have a different harmonic value. You listen to those old jump guys, instead of going, well, yeah, there were the, like, ba-da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da, and that major triad thing that's real prevalent. Other than that, if you're supposed to be walking it or whatever, those old guys didn't go. They went. They stayed close because they're playing an instrument that's almost impossible to play, A. Mm-hmm. And B, once you get a spot, on those on double basses, you're never playing down here. You can't hear that. Never. They're always here. So when they'd get a note that they could hear and everybody in the band could hear, they'd stay there for a while. So that's kind of what defines.
I dig it, man. I really dig that.
What defines at least my style is, even before I played double bass, I had an old school guy tell me, every time I see a play, I think he must play upright, but I didn't. So I guess it's just what I listened to, all that stuff I grew up on,
You just stopped playing the upright bass. Though.
I did.
Yeah, I mean, I want to be clear. For many years, you did play the upright bass, and once you marinated in the R&B and soul, just based off this reading I did this morning, hopefully it's accurate, is that you were in these sometimes trios or duos playing upright.
Yeah.
All different muscle systems, completely different fingering systems.
Mm-hmm. No frets.
Because there are a couple of cats from Minnesota, one upright bass player. I mean, what was the closest thing you came to playing, I hate labels, but jazz? In the context of the upright.
Yeah, I did not play the double bass when I was in Iowa and Minnesota during those years. I played in a great bluegrass band when I was in college at Mankato State.
What was the name of that band?
The Blitz Boys.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And
was there a drummer or no drums?
Well, I was just going to say we were a weird bluegrass band because we had absolutely amazing guitar player, flat pick and finger pick guitar player, acoustic. This kid that played violin like he was a savant, and
fiddle,
then a banjo player who also played pedal steel, and then me. And so, since we had a steel player, we thought it would be fun to do bluegrass and Texas swing. So we had a drummer. We were probably the only bluegrass band at that time in the world with a drummer. I don't know.
That is a driving band. But so you played bluegrass with the upright.
No, I was still playing electric.
Still playing electric?
Yeah,
that must have burned so hard.
It was fun. But I picked the upright up maybe 25 years ago during the... I'd always wanted to play one. I could never find one. I did a sub for a country band one time, and the guy that fronted the band said, "Man, I wish I would have stuck with the bass." You know, he said, I still got my first bass, and of course I'm thinking, Fender, Fender. And I said, "What kind is it?" And he said, "Oh, it's a K." So, being kind of thick-headed like I am, I thought, K, whatever. Then I started thinking about it. Maybe he's got an upright. So I called him, and he said, "Yeah, I've got an upright bass." So I said, "Can I see it?" And he said, "Well, it's at my dad's." So we go over to his dad's house. His dad used to be the president of the Tucson Musicians Union when there was such a thing. And he was this crusty old dude. And Jason, the guy's name was Jason Burns. And Mr. Burns had Jason's old K bass in a corner with the neck broken off. And Jason said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, I fell off the bus with it and broke the neck off." So Mr. Burns had no interest in selling it to me. Before I left, and he regaled me with stories for an hour. I was there with a great Phoenix drummer buddy of mine named Brian Fahey. The reason Brian was there is he heard there was drums. He thought maybe he could get some more.
Is he still up in Phoenix now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well,
still plays in
He'll be checking this out later.
Yeah. Anyway, so...
But there were no drums there. It was just,
well, there were, but they weren't Radio Kings or something cool like Brian would have liked. Anyway, before we left, I said to Mr. Burns, I said, "Well, I don't want to be that guy, but that bass was not made to be sitting in a corner with the neck broken off. That thing needs to be played. That ain't right." So, no disrespect. About a week later, he calls me. "Come over here and get that bass."
that was sitting inside, gnawing at him for.
Yeah.
Finally, call Graham.
And I believe he called me an off-color name also.
Right.
Might have been asshole.
Which is a compliment, obviously, you know.
Well, to me it is.
Well, I mean, you obviously, you know, he knew you were. So, did you put the neck?
I went over there and I had somebody put the neck on it, and I started, you know, I started playing double bass like I did electric bass. Although by now we had CDs, so I put on the seminal Hollywood Fats record with Larry Taylor on bass and Freddie Kaplan playing piano.
Larry Taylor from Can't Heat?
Yeah.
Oh, my man, dude.
And everybody. You know,
Is
Fats.
he not upright on that? I got to know what album that is. What
It's just Hollywood Fats and Friends. To this day, like the definitive jump blues. You know, if somebody says, "What's jump blues?" Buy them that CD.
Dig.
Anyway, so I'm going to play along. I couldn't make it through 8 bars. And the strings were this far off the fingerboard at this point. It hadn't been set up. After about a week, I could get through a song. After a month, I was playing 3 or 4 songs. I took my bass to have Reed Muntz reset it up and plane the bowing hump out. I got it back, and it was like an electric bass.
Wow.
I played the whole album first time, and that was it. Bam, I was off and running.
Unbelievable.
And I played, the first time I played it on a stage was with Bad News back in the early days of Bad News. And then I left Bad News Blues to play with Mike Hebert and the Kings of Pleasure. And there was a certain amount of jazz involved with that gig. As we evolved and Mike started booking more weddings and you know, stuff like that, there's a dinner set. Now I've got a fake book there, and I'm playing, you know, How High the Moon, and
see, yeah, there you go,
and all that stuff, which I never was good at. I mean, I didn't. And if it said A minor diminished flat 13, I just played an A and a C and an E. I mean, I didn't know what any of that other shit meant, but I wasn't getting in the way, and it grew. But I never, the respect I have for the cats that play bass, like here in town, Scott Black, Ed Friedland, Evan Arredondo, Mike Levy. I know I'm leaving people out. I don't know most of the jazz guys. Those guys. Sam Egan. Those guys, I'm here and they're here. If you get into my genre, then it kind of evens the playing field a little bit. But what they know, it's scary.
In your, just talking to, there is sort of a boomerang thing going on. What I see younger cats. I've been on the road last month, and a couple of really genuine guys, real young duo, singing great original tunes, playing acoustic music. You and Danny Krieger have been a duo for some time. What are the most important tenets of being able? Here's a better question. Are your intention? What's your most important intention when you guys get on the bandstand as it relates to the music that you want to perform? What's the most important thing as a duo? Is it touching people's hearts?
No, I never think of that.
You've got the longevity of the band. How have you guys stayed together and continued to get off on the music for so long?
Danny and I, especially, it's kind of a drag now that I can't play double bass anymore. Ask me why after I. No. So anyway,
I'll keep that tucked away.
When Danny and I mean, there's a lot of duos, two guys playing guitar and harmonica, that kind of thing. Guitar, acoustic guitar, and acoustic bass. Well, first of all, you got Danny Krieger, who's just, forget it. Lights out, perfect. I mean, even the jazz guys in town, they're like, oh, that guy's unbelievable. And he is. And he has a tendency to hit the guitar with his hand. And when you play double bass, it's impossible to not hit it because that's what you're doing. And then, you do a little, couple chicka-chicka kind of things. And then now it sounds like we have a drummer.
Right.
So.
Very rhythmic.
Very, very unique sound. We both write, so the majority of what we could play, pretty much all originals, but it's fun to do other stuff too. We have such a genuine friendship, and we're like this. I mean, we've toured so much. We like the same books, art. Well, he's a movie critic and a contrarian, so we do disagree on certain things. But it's like I'm not a contrarian. Anyway.
But there's such a deep bond beyond the music.
Right. When we get on stage, I mean, and it's a shame that we don't do it more. I mean, every time we play, at some point during the gig, one or the other of us will say, God, I wish we could just do this and not have to do all the other stuff, because it's us, it's our thing. And picture a golf course restaurant in Oro Valley. We walk in and they love it,
and that's about as square as it gets. You got to loosen them up.
I mean, of course, we the first time we played at this one place, it's called The Views. I said, well, hey, we're Grams and Krieger, and we're really glad to be here. Our job is to play, your job is to eat and drink, and if you have any requests, keep them to yourself.
Right.
Everybody laughs. Right, bam, we got them in our pocket. First break we took there. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for putting money in our tip jar. If you want CDs, we've got, we've recorded 6 over almost 20 years. We got them here. And if you need us, we'll be at the bar. But it goes over. And if you would have asked me when they called me to do this gig, I thought, one and out. But
how long ago was that?
probably what? I was still playing double bass then, so probably 3 years ago, 4 years ago.
And really, the truth is, you guys are consistently writing original tunes, which really doesn't allow anything to become that stale. And you just have a big bag. That's the other thing. Your repertoire is huge. Like, you have a big bag of tunes.
Yeah. As an aside, we haven't been writing since I write on the guitar. I can't play the guitar anymore.
Okay, so let's break this down. Why are you inhibited from playing the upright and the guitar?
A couple of years ago, my middle finger on my left hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Lee Sklar's watching right now.
The end of it was over here.
Oh.
It was that way.
Oh.
Osteoarthritis, and I was bone on bone. This one was about this big around, and I couldn't even go like this, Jake. I mean, it was so painful. I could not use my index finger, even on electric. So I started taping them up and taking a lot. Finally, I just had to quit playing double bass. It was virtually impossible. A little over a year ago, I've got to trash these jerks. I saw 3 osteo surgeons here in Tucson. All 3 of them told me I had one choice, and that was to get fusion surgery. Run 3 rods through each one. This knuckle would never move, and basically, I'm done playing music. 3 of them.
And the point is here to alleviate the pain.
Correct.
Okay.
So I asked the last one, I said, not that I'm even remotely in this guy's class, because clearly I'm not. What's Yo-Yo Ma going to do when his fingers, when this happens? Because it's a repetitive
question.
Osteo. And the doctor said, well, he's got a lot of money. So I stood up, and for a second he looked like he thought I was going to hit him,
right,
which I wanted to.
Right.
And he said, hey, we're not done. I said, yeah, we are. And I walked out. My wife, who's a retired nurse case manager, found a surgeon in Tempe named Michael Fitzmaurice, and his advert was non-invasive surgery, stem cell rejuvenation.
Dick.
So I go.
Someone's just doing that for their back, right? I mean, that's and it worked.
Yeah. So I went up there, and they put what they called a tourniquet on the end of each finger, one at a time. And the guy said, "You want to watch?" I mean, come on. So they put a sheet up. You know, they deaden my hand, of course. And I hear this, and they're ratcheting my finger up. This one, they had to go in here and here, and they got all that. When you don't have cartilage, your body tries to replace it, and what it replaces it with is calcium. So that's why, old people, their knuckles are all big. That's what's happening. So we got in there, and this one literally, what direction was over here. So he got all that crap out of there, straightened it out, and then he did the same thing to this one. This took about 45 minutes. This took about a half hour. And then he said, now I'm going to inject you with stem cells. He made the stem cells from my body, blood and belly fat, which he had a multitude of number of options where he wanted to go. I asked him to go over here, but he went this side. So anyway, he put that in there, and 4 months later, I have cartilage. It does not hurt to play. I can't play double bass. My wife would kill me. I don't want to go through that again. But if you look at these fingers, man, these two, and I've been waiting to go see the last surgeon I saw so I could just go like this and then go like this.
Yeah, maybe you'll see him on the street one day. I wouldn't go out of my way. I'm just glad that it's interesting. I have a buddy, a good dear friend of mine, who's has had serious back problems and is now a candidate for stem cell work, as opposed to these fusing surgeries, which are just debilitating and quite. So I mean, let's be clear. I just would like. I mean, you've been on the bandstand for 50 years. If music was taken away from you, would your soul die?
No.
Why?
First of all, I'd find something else with music. I'd probably end up just singing.
Still got your voice, yeah?
And it's funny because I had to wrestle with this because it was a little over a year ago that I had the surgery. I was out for 4 months. And during that time, during that time, it's like, what am I gonna do? If I'm home every night, my wife will kill me. Literally. So I thought, well, I can always sing, and then I thought, well, you know, it'd be really cool because I can kind of get around on the keyboard a little bit, start playing organ. You know, because the left hand, they're just kind of hitting it anyway, you know, so that's what I thought, you know, maybe that's what I'll do, because I hate harmonica, so I don't want to learn harmonica. By the way, backtracking real quick,
yeah.
You asked about me not playing guitar. The one trade-off for this surgery is I can't bend these guys any further than that. Okay, so in other words, I can't really make a fist, which means I had to cancel the Foreman fight. You know, my fighting career is over. But I can't play the guitar.
You're right.
So it's really difficult. I'm writing lyrics, but it's just a real struggle right now as far as that's concerned.
Of course, because that would. Now, have you figured out a way to continue to write songs, or has that been stagnated because of?
Well, it's been stagnated for two reasons. One, I'm lazy.
Right.
And
we know
two,
that.
I don't have any motivation. For example, if Danny said to me, we need to do another CD, and we both need to come up with 6 songs, okay, I'll get back into it, but the chances of Danny saying that, I would say like 1 in a million, because he's even lazier than I am. So, there you go.
Just before my phone battery dies, we've all talked about the distractions and you were talking about a band before, about watching them. You know, you saved up you shoveled snow and cleared debris for 2 years to buy your first bass, and then you saw this, you know, this iconic rock band, this dude smash the instrument on the stage. And I just wanted you to talk about, you know, ultimately the integrity of the music and how to create spiritual music. I want you to talk about, because really that's what music is about. There's only 2 letters that separate magic and music. And I don't care if you're playing Abbott Taylor's jewelry parties, or you're playing a senior citizen home somewhere in Vail, or you're up in Oro Valley, or on the road touring in Europe. Can you talk about how you work to create spiritual music and not desecrate the music?
Well, music is and has been my life. I started playing piano in 2nd grade, then I played trombone until I got thrown out of the orchestra. Then I got my first guitar, and then I got my first bass. I started gigging when I was 15. I'll be 70 this month. I have a wonderful wife, 3 children, 5 grandchildren, but music is my life. I don't care, like you said, whether it's a golf club restaurant or a senior citizen. I put the same exact amount of heart into every gig. It doesn't matter. We opened for somebody at the El Casino Ballroom maybe 3 weeks ago. I did not approach that gig any differently than I will. There's a place up in Oro Valley where everybody's got a walker, and you know what I mean? I don't mail that in. I play this. Danny and I play it balls to the wall.
All you got. Give it all you got.
Every time.
I dig.
I mean, and if you're not doing that, then it's time to hang it up.
Can you just give the audience an idea of the dates coming up you got playing? Anything you want to promote? I know you don't have. I mean, you have a bunch of CDs. You don't have one coming out anytime soon, though.
No. If you go to grahamsandkrieger.com, I think we've done 6. The 5th and 6th are still available. We sold out all the other ones.
At the merch table.
Yeah.
Nice. Like, so you'd have to have more pressed if you wanted if people want to get them. They're all the pressings are gone.
Of the first 4, yeah. And if you go to our website, you can buy them on the website. I mean, Danny and I really lucked out in that in the early 2000s, we hooked up with this Dutch piano player, and we were over there touring with him over there 2-3 times a year and 3 months a year here in the States. So every time we went to Holland, we sold a pile of CDs. So that contributed quite a bit to, and we were on CD Baby and, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, and it's not like we had 10,000 pressings. I think they were all 1,000. So, how many CDs have we sold? 5,000.
What's your next gig coming up?
I'm with Bad News Blues tonight. We are headlining the Bisbee Blues Festival, 9 o'clock.
The Head Show, 9 p.m. down in Bisbee. Have a beautiful drive down there. Steve Grams, what an honor. I can't wait to do it again, man. Thank you so much for being part of the show. It's the Jake Feinberg Show. See you later.